Hey everyone, I'm Brian Gomer, and I lead mentor programs and corporate partner engagement at Technovation.
I'm Shivani, and I'm the director of development at Technovation.
And we're here today having an awesome conversation with our partner and our friend, Brittany from Shopify.
Thanks, Brian. So my name is Brittany, and I lead the youth outreach portfolio at Shopify. And we are sitting on the social impact team, which is a pretty awesome team.
Brittany, I think it's obvious just from chatting about employee engagement alone that Shopify is very intentional about partnerships and you're willing to try and experiment with different approaches. So I'd love to ask you, from what you've seen in our partnership and other partnerships, do you have any advice for a corporate partner working with a nonprofit like Technovation? And what would you say are some keys to success for a partnership?
Okay, so I've got a lot to say on this topic, so feel free to interrupt me anytime. But the first piece that I think is really key to success is having a dedicated champion and people resources at the company. To truly collaborate, there needs to be a dedicated person on the corporate side that will spend time to build the partnership. Like, that stuff takes time. And this dedicated person will be the nonprofit's champion within the company to ensure that both business goals and community goals are being met through the partnership, which ultimately is going to be the key to ensuring like a long-lasting partnership if both goals are being met. And I think something that gets overlooked is like this champion needs to care like on a personal level about the partnership's intended outcomes. Without that, impact will just be kept surface level and I don't think it would go very far. Like, for example, little side stories. Like for me, I used to work in game design, and I really was passionate about getting more girls involved in tech because I wasn't seeing women in this space. And I ended up pivoting into outreach and now supporting these programs. But on a personal, deep level, I care about this work. And I think that a champion on the corporate side doesn't have to have the same story, of course, but there needs to be a connection piece to that. And the second one I'll mention is really leveraging all business strengths to make a difference. And what I mean about that is, of course, money is incredibly important. Don't get me wrong. Money is key in many ways, but it's not everything. And if you're partnering, it's because we, in this example, Shopify can offer so much more to you, the nonprofit, that will further your objectives, And I think this is the most creative part in a partnership, is figuring out together, how can we leverage business strengths to solve a problem? For example, as a tech company, we have so many engineers and software developers using the latest technology equipment, which means we see high turnover of hardware. And, through conversations with our other partners, we've determined there was a high need for laptops. And therefore, I began the journey to develop the laptop donation program at Shopify. And that now serves all of our youth outreach partnerships, whereas before, if you're just considering the financial piece, like you would have overlooked this incredible value add for our community partners. The third one I'll talk about, which I think is really key for a corporate partner to keep in mind, is building for the long term. So I don't have to tell you guys, but supporting youth outreach programs is a long-term commitment. Like, you're not going to see much of the impact for 5, 10, 15 or more years from now. So I think making decisions on the corporate side, like, has to be for the long term, and you need to have the attitude of like patience, persistence, and perseverance, and knowing that like the KPIs are going to look different than maybe when you're developing a product that's short term and needs to get shipped this year. So that's an important, I think, mindset to keep in mind when you're building these partnerships, that you're in it really for the long haul. So from our side, like, we avoid one-off engagements since we don't see as much impact, or we know that that's not going to have like long tail impact. And instead we focus on building sustainable partnerships with many touch points like ours with you.
We're all in this work because we love the impact and there's change we want to see. We feel that may be happening, but that needs to happen. But there's also a reason that change needs to happen. Like, there's gaps that are happening because it doesn't happen overnight. right? We wouldn't be doing this work if it just was already in place. And because it takes real time, like to get ingrained, to build that momentum, like you said, sometimes over the course of many years, which is so important for both parties to see when collaborating together. So that really spoke to me.
And the last thing I'll mention that I think is really important, that also I think is overlooked, is quality over quantity when it comes to building these kinds of partnerships and supporting programs. Because it's tempting to determine impact and ROI, through quantitative data such as reach and program registration numbers. And that could be enough for some partnerships. But we think it's important to focus on engagements that provide long-lasting value for participants. Like for us, it's not about the number of people we're reaching, but about the quality of that engagement, like the learning outcomes, the skills developed, the confidence boosted, the interest peaked, in both STEM and entrepreneurship. Like that's the real impact that's worth investing in.
Yeah. So you just gave some awesome keys, some strategies, kind of really rooted in the work of a partnership. I guess just kind of stepping back then, like thinking you have those strategies. What's your team's approach to partner collaboration? Kind of what's the framework all these keys kind of fit into? So
when possible, we'd love to follow a co-create model with partners. So that means we collaborate on programs together, we brainstorm solutions, we leverage one another's team strengths, and are ultimately both accountable for the outcomes, which I think is a different way to look at partnerships. Like normally when you work with a partner, like you as the owner of the program are obviously solely accountable for the outcomes of this program on participants. But the way we like to see it and why we're so invested in this is like, we're also just as accountable to the impact we're having to the participants, to the volunteers, to the parents, like everyone we're engaging, we want to be just as accountable as you. So that's how we approach our partnerships. And I'll share my guiding principles of tenets. They'll be very similar to the keys we just discussed, but I'd say these are more succinct ways to put them. But our guiding principles and tenets are: 1, we build for the long term. So we partner with organizations to support and build programs, not one-off events. 2, sustainable. Whatever we support/build needs to withstand the test of time. So we consider financial, team, and volunteer resources. 3, intentional engagement. We're supporting those who have traditionally been excluded from a pathway into tech. Hard stop. And then 4, quality over quantity. Choose fewer partners to invest more in. This enables higher quality experiences for youth and more meaningful partnerships and returns for Shopify.
I'm glad you mentioned the co-create model because I'm curious what sort of things do you hope to get from your nonprofit partner when you're co-creating this partnership?
So, one of the first things that we do when especially welcoming a new partner or starting to work with someone new is making sure that our values align. So, we expect that the partner has demonstrated or sustained alignment on team mandate and approach, and has documented and actively demonstrates their inclusion practices, which is something that's really important to us. So values alignment is really key. Having shared impact goals and strategies are something that we look for in a partner. So, having the organization having a clearly defined why, and having that always be reflected in what they do and how they do it. Also key that the partner gathers data and measures impact through consistent and credible methods, and is able to and willing to share that with us as a partner is really important. And of course, tied to, us following a co-create model, like collaboration is definitely key and something we hope and expect from our partners. So part of that is, transparent communication, the partner sharing information with us and being open with us, welcomes, that given forth, that feedback, all the pieces that are going to make the program and the partnership better. And tied to that, just making, like, as I've said before, even with volunteers, like being just as open with us with the negative pieces is something we definitely expect and hope for, just because you can't build something better if you don't know what's not working. So that's a huge piece. And the last thing that we we hope for with the partners that we work with is that the CEO or the senior members are active in their community, and they act as a role model, and stand for everything that they're working towards. And that the other partners that the org is affiliated with also is aligned with us, and there aren't too conflicts there in terms of our sustainability approach, for example. Those are the things that we expect when working with our partners.
Given the resource restrictions of a small nonprofit like Technovation, like so many others working with companies, how do you leverage your team's assets to enhance the partnership?
Yes, it's a great question, because it goes back to making sure that we are leveraging our business strengths. So, Shopify made the decision back in 2017 to invest in youth outreach programs. And specifically at the time, we were focused on STEM education for underserved and underrepresented youth. And since then have added more entrepreneurship education to the ranks. But Shopify sees this as a long-term investment that will benefit the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that's including future employees, merchants, developer partners, and buyers. So with this vision in mind, the company has dedicated people resources to this team in order to develop, partnerships like Technovation and other partnerships around the world, and program support. So I think the people resources piece that we're actually adding folks to the team in order to build this up, I think is a huge asset to our partnerships. And then, the thing I love talking about and why I think us as a partner is so special, not to toot our own horn, but the wonderful superpower that we have is insight and experience. And so we work with dozens of partners, have collaborated on hundreds of events, and we've delivered on a wide range of projects for different communities. So, with this experience comes insight into what works, what needs improvement, what opportunities exist. It's these pieces that we offer our partners, and we love to work with our partners to deliver this information. So if you partner with us, you have the benefit of all of these learnings at scale, which I think is magic.
Definitely magic. That's great. I think that covered a lot. I think it's time to go update our strategy and best practice docs and get all this down. Brittany, thank you so much for this conversation. I know we get so much out of it. Our whole team will, and I hope others that view this get a lot out of partnering kind of with volunteerism in mind.
Amazing. Well, thank you for welcoming the conversation. And we love working with Technovation. We believe in your mission, and we're so excited to keep building with you guys.